Well, that escalated quickly. Today, we're tearing down our 1978 GMC crew cab in preparation for building it up better again.
All right, it's assessment time for this. So we are, I believe, going to be replacing the front clip with that front clip, because although this one has some dents and dings and some surface rust, it's solid and it doesn't have the bendy 70s hoods, you know, that crease in the middle. So I'm gonna have to fix this door. I don't know what's going to be involved there, because I'm going to open it up. I'm going to take this panel off, see what we got inside. There's various things that we have to look at and address. This rusty door is not one of them. We can replace that door anytime we want. The goal out of the gate is to get the cab unit, just the cab, not necessarily the doors or anything else, get the cab unit solid. And that means fixing these holes. Looks like there's a little bit of Bondo there. That's fine. Fixing those and addressing any of the floor issues. I did momentarily crawl under it, and it does have some holes in the floor. That's fine. We're going to rip out everything in the cab, which isn't really that complicated because it's just 2 bench seats and carpet. That's all coming out, and so we'll be able to assess the floors easier. Then we have to address the fuel tanks. So there's 3. There's the one here, and there's the side saddle tank on the other side, and there's the seat tank. We're going to take that seat out anyway, and then we can assess that tank for leaks and whatever. I think it looks relatively newish. I think it's a pretty new tank, judging by what I'm seeing there. So there's that. So we have to decide what tanks we're going to keep and what tanks we're going to take off. So this truck over here, the ultimate plan is to get this utility bed on that truck. And yes, I know it's old and rusty and probably not worth it, but like I've said a million times before, I have no money, and this is what I have. And this is actually, even though it looks pretty bad, it's actually relatively intact. Just ignore those holes there. Eventually down the road, if I save enough money, I can put a nice utility bed on that. But until that happens, we're going to be using this one. And so this one just has this one side saddle tank with no tank on the other side. And that tank was brand new a couple years ago when I got this truck. So I'm thinking I move this bed over. We are definitely going to take that tank with it, since everything matches up. The hoses and lengths and the mounts should match up. And so then if we keep this other side saddle tank, if we decide to keep this one, we're not going to have a fill for it. So this one has the fill in the bed, and this is the tank it's running on. So our best bet is to take that tank and move it over to that truck, since everything matches the bed, and this bed is going on that truck when we swap the beds out. So that way it'll have a matching tank for the bed, and then this will have a matching tank for this bed. So that leaves us to decide what to do with this behind the seat tank. So there's 2 options here. I can rip this tank out, and I can make the seat fold forward for storage behind the seat. That's option 1. Option 2 is I can make this a 2-tank truck, since there is a valve which is right now just looped back on itself right here. This is the fuel valve, and it appears to actually work. It's just not hooked up. That'll switch tanks, and then we just need a switch to switch the gauge over. Option 2 is we can keep this with 2 tanks. I don't know what I'm going to do yet. Usually I like behind the seat storage for, like, you know, oil cans and coolant cans and things like that. That's the plan. initial plan to get it running and driving. And we need to figure out the brakes. What else? Oh, and turn signals. We need to get the turn signals. Like I said before, I think it's the switch. So I'm going to dig into the steering column to work on that. At the same time, we can address this fractured piece here. And I know it looks pretty bad, but a lot of this is just, you know, it's fine. It's stuff that can be patched with sheet metal on a welder. And I'm not going to do a good job. I'm just going to do an okay job. There is some Bondo, and that's what you're seeing peeling, Bondo and paint. And some rust bubbling. But that's going to be wire brushed down and POR 15'd and, you know, just re-Bondo it and keep it from rusting further. And down the road, if me or anybody else wants to do a full restoration on this, it will preserve it until such a time as you can make it into a really, really nice vehicle. Oh, and one more thing, air conditioning. This truck does not have air conditioning. So my plan is to take the air conditioning out of this truck, which did not come with AC from the factory. Instead, it has a dealer add-on Clardy manufacturing AC system, which is buried under the dash here. The only problem is they had to chop the glove compartment, which I prefer not to do to this truck. So I don't know how I'm gonna mount it yet. I don't know, I guess I could move that glove compartment over. I'm not sure. These running boards are going to have to come off at least temporarily. I don't know if I'll put them back on yet or not. They're generally rust collectors. I'm gonna take them off just because, well, I get to take the fenders off and then I'll be able to see the rockers a little bit better and get to anything I need to work on down there. All right, so part of the first section of our work here is going to be basically removing everything we can from this vehicle in preparation for repairing it. So I'm just cruising along, taking things apart here, and I'm not really filming much of it because it's just turning bolts, and I'm sure there's a million videos out there showing how to take this stuff all apart. So anyway, I'm just going to keep cruising along here. So after testing, that round one is the 4-way flasher, which I should have known because it has 2 pins. I'm an idiot. I don't have any relays, flasher relays with 3 pins in this configuration, so I don't know. I did hook it up and the coil was good and it pulls the contact in. I cleaned the contacts up a little bit and I guess I'll put the case back on and try it again. Alright, so with the contact cleaned, so now I'm just going to operate this manually. See, I get one flash. Just that one flash. I'm wondering if the contacts in this switch are so worn. It's like the moving it back and forth will sometimes, not all the time. Moving at full range and it's only getting the right one. There's the left one. I'm thinking the contacts in the switch are worn. Well, I can try to clean them up or I can get a new switch. They're not expensive, and these switches come apart really easy too, so I don't know. Let me take a look. Well, we got our new switch, turn signal switch, and these are never built as good as the original ones, although this one actually seems to be, sometimes they snap too hard because the plastic is too tight, or this one actually appears to be decent. I don't know, let's find out. Let's turn our, oh, we gotta plug the battery in, don't we? Okay, let's turn the ignition on here. See. And check at the other one. Okay. Let me just check the outside here. Oh, this one, forgot which one I turned on. Fantastic. Okay. So now the next step is to, I'll check the 4-way switch on here, but now our next step is to put that column back together. I gotta fix that hole in the plastic cowling on the column, and then we can do that, and then we can put all this back together. So the steering column cowl, whatever you want to call it, cover, serves a couple purposes. It holds everything. It also holds the bearing for the steering shaft, and then they have this transitions into this metal piece in this generation. So it's held on by these clips, part of the plastic, which it'll hang on with the clips that are there, so I don't have to worry too much about that. Mostly I'm going for finishing the decorative cover there, because everything else is intact, but I also want to stop this crack from proceeding up there, so I will probably drill a hole at the end of the crack and patch it when I reach that point. And yeah, I need to find something to fill this. Then I can kind of, smooth it and sand it. This is just regular plastic, but I believe it's a thermoset plastic, so I don't think I can melt anything to it, because they wanted it to be pretty solid. So thermoplastic plastics are the kind you can melt and form when they're hot, and I don't think this is it. You can usually tell because these are the ones that kind of crack, kind of like glass, especially with age. So I'm going to find some kind of plastic to fill that with, and maybe use some JB Weld or some filler to fill around it when I'm done. It doesn't have to have a lot of structure or integrity because it doesn't get whacked around a lot. So I just did some rough sanding because I'm going to paint this when I'm done, because I'm going to have to because of this. I think I'm going to try to match this paint can lid in here. It's about the right height. I think I can kind of unpeel this and it will mold to the shape that I want, and then I can reinforce it. So I think that will become the main structure of my patch here. Let's see how that works. So paint can lids are obviously hard to form. I knew that going in because they're kind of brittle, but it's kind of the same type of plastic, I think, maybe? I don't know. Anyway, I got my biggest patch in position and some glue setting, and I'm going to reinforce this with some JB Weld and fill some gaps, and then I'll work my way down here, and then when I'm all done I'll sand it smooth and paint it. I like how these guys say these GM steering wheels from the 70s disintegrate and get sticky. Well, they're not disintegrating, guys. It's just because, you never clean your steering wheels. I mean, this one's from 1978. It's not disintegrated. It's just not cleaned. So, yeah. Give her a good cleaning here, and she won't be like brand new, but she'll be close. Well, our steering column is coming along nicely. We've still got some more sanding and fill to do, but yeah, we're getting there. Alright, I got the steering column patched up, and now just gonna hit it with a little can of, liquid wonderfulness. I'm just gonna make this whole thing black, and it'll look okay because we're not going for full restoration here. That'll work for our purposes. Yep. There was the goodness. You can't hardly even see where I patched it, even in real light. Wow. Oh, that's good. I like that. All right, let's put this column back together. Not forget your rubber decorative seal. It's not easy to get on after the fact, I'll tell you that. So when you slide this cover on, you got to make sure that the ignition gear, the ignition sector gear, and the rack for the ignition switch, which is down in here on top of the column, are aligned properly. Basically, I had to pull out this ignition switch and slide the rod and the gear and the rack in to align with the sector gear and make sure that all the positions are correct for the switch. And if you're wondering which position is correct when you're looking in here, there's kind of a big notch on the sector gear, and that aligns with the very last notch on the rack. So when it's in the accessory position, that big notch is in the notch on the rack gear. So I got all those aligned. Now I can put the column back together. Okay. Got the cover bolted back on. That's nice and solid. And now we can put our turn signal switch back in. If you want to see the details on this, I'm sure there's plenty of videos on YouTube about the hows and the whys and the wherefores. We're getting there. I bolted the column back up in. I did verify the ignition switch and the electrical thereof. And this, I think, goes on a certain way there. And then I'll just take this ring and we'll snap it down over there. As soon as I have two hands. Oh, there's my tool. We'll press that down and it'll make it easier to put the ring on. Okay, got that compressed. And we can shove this ring down. This is all together. The ring is on, holding this together. I did put the four-way button back on, test that. Everything was wrong with this signal switch. I ordered it for this vehicle and I don't know what they gave me, but I mean, literally almost everything was wrong. I don't know what it's for. Must not be for a square body, but these GM steering columns are pretty much the same, so I don't know. Maybe it's for a tilt column or something. Anywho, I had to enlarge this a little bit. That's usually against the rules for me, but it doesn't make much of a difference. It does lock in, so. Alright, now we can put the steering wheel back on. Alright, we got the column back together. The only difference is there's a little bit more angle this way than there was before to the turn signal because of this switch has a different angle to it, but that's fine. We'll make it work. There's the steering column done and ready to go. So since we got back, I haven't checked the coolant. And I opened the cap up and, well, we got a whole lot of nothing. So that's one of two possibilities. We got a leak somewhere, or we got a blown head gasket. I think what I'm going to do is probably fill that up and pressure test it. I have the radiator filled and pressurized with my tester. Pressurize it right to that black line there, and we can watch if it drifts down. Oh yeah, I think we found our leak. We have a leak right there. Okay, well, that's easily fixed. I can do that. That may have sprung on the way home because I didn't see that before, so that's fine. Those hoses are old anyway. I'm sure I have some hose around here somewhere. Got fluid here, fluid there, and this is disconnected and I got no fluid here even when I pump the pedal, so I think it's time for a new master cylinder. That is coming off. Well, it's a few days later on the brake project, and I got my master cylinder, and miracle of miracles, it looks like they actually sent me the right one. This is always fun because, you know, as soon as you start putting real pressure on aged brake lines, you know, things start
popping like an 83-day-old sausage. I don't know. That brake fluid is very iffy, so who knows what got forced down in the lines. So let's see if we can get those surprisingly not rusty bolts off. Lubricant. 17 millimeter. All right. Oh, we got one loose. Took all the skin off my arm on that hinge, but we got one loose. All right. Will the other one come off? I get my force applicator. Force applicator. What could go wrong? Yeah, I got it. All right. Okay. In case you were wondering what it looked like inside, that is the kind of crud that you get built up in these master cylinders, the cast iron ones, after it sits for a while. And brake fluid does absorb oxygen, so it can rust. That's what happens to the inside of your brake lines as well over time. It's like the back was leaking a little bit. That's not good, but hopefully brake booster is still intact. I really hope so. I find it's easier to bleed these after I install it, because then I can work it with the pedal. So we're gonna do it that way. Put the other one on. So spoiler alert, I'm going to take the bed off and the front clip. But we're going to be able to access the brake lines and bleeder valves. Where's the bleeder? Oh, the bleeder's hidden right up under there. And this way, since they're so rusty, when I snap them off, inevitably, they'll be that much easier to service. And up here at the front, we can access these. My goodness, they're rusty. So I'm going to crack the bleeders loose and basically get all the lines clear. First bleeder, will it snap? Oh, it's actually loosening. In this case, I'm going to take it completely out and make sure that it's clear, because I just want to be certain. Get your torch tip cleaners, which I don't know if anybody actually uses for cleaning torch tips or not. Yep, and I can see the cleaner down through that hole, so that one is good. Let's tighten that up in the short term here while we make sure the others are clear. Alright, well, this one has a rubber cap on it. Alrighty, see if we can snap that off and lose it in the grass. Got that one off. I'll just set it right there where we're sure to lose it. Oh, that one loosened too. It's a miracle. Never happens.
Okay, it's wet with brake fluid. I'm going to clean this out a little bit because it looks a little dirty. Okay, put that back in. Let's move to the front. All right, third bleeder. Will it come off? Oh, I think I just stripped it. Let me finish stripping that one, and then I'll get back to you when it's fully stripped. I managed to get this one loose by driving a socket down onto the top of it. We're getting a good bit of fluid out of this for starters, so I didn't take it completely out because I know it's not plugged. Got it just snug enough so that it won't run any liquid out. Let's move to the last one. Oh, this one doesn't look quite as corroded, so hopefully... Oh, I felt it strip. Have to do the same trick there, I guess. Come on, baby. Oh, snapped it right off. Well, what happened 50% of the time, inevitably, happened this time. I drilled it out as big as I could, got an easy out in there, and the easy out snapped off. So, yeah, I'm used to that. We're looking at a whole new caliper at this point. That's fine, they're not horrifically expensive. While we're waiting on the new caliper for the front, I could still bleed the back, and at least I'll have that half done. Alright, loosen this up. Well, we're getting nothing. Let's move to the other side, because see if we can maybe eliminate some sections here just by moving over here. Let's find out. It is dry. Alright. It's holding a vacuum. Makes me think maybe a line's plugged somewhere. Yeah, so I'm going to start my elimination. Since it's both sides, it's probably somewhere in this line somewhere. I'll probably have to replace that inevitably. Let me see if I can get that connection apart. Yeah, so the brake parts breakage continues. This, of course, inevitably is all rusted together and snapped off. And I can't seem to get my torch tip cleaner in further than that, which is right up to about this joint here where it's not in great shape. Fantastic. Let's get this rusty old caliper off of here and replace it with our brand new, hopefully correct caliper. New brake caliper is on. We just have to replace this bleeder over here that is of dubious quality. I mean, I could probably reuse it, but I'm not gonna, because this is a truck I'm planning on keeping for a while, so I'd like to be able to get that off again if necessary. Starting to get the air out. This takes a while. Get back to you when I have this bled, and we can do the other side. Okay, we got both sides of the front bled, I believe. I ran a couple canisters through it just to be sure, you know, did a little extra bleeding with my vacuum gun. On to the back, and we got to get our brake lines hooked up. I got to fabricate a new metal line there also. I have replaced the broken and damaged rear brake components. Replaced that line, just flared one up myself, which I hate because my double flare toolkit stinks, but I did manage to do it, and it is not leaking. And replaced this hose, got everything buttoned back up, bled the rear brakes, and surprisingly we have a nice firm pedal with the engine off. So that means we may have got them bled enough. I might have to bleed a little bit more because I probably didn't do a good enough job with the master cylinder when I bench bled it. So I do believe that the brakes are now ready to go. So we got to take this bed off for a multitude of reasons. We got to get to the fuel tanks, and we're putting that utility bed on it, and it's very rusty and it's completely shot. One of the previous owners put this steel plate in, and they bolted it to the bed itself. I'm guessing to cover the center section rotted out. We're gonna find out. I could undo these bolts the right way, or I could just, you know, zip them off. This is the way. Trying to figure out which way they shoehorned this thing in here. You know, you can't drop it straight down because it goes under the lip of the bed. And they had to put it in at an angle, one way or the other. Gotta get that back corner up. It doesn't want to come up. Not as rusty as I thought. All right, well, that ought to do it. Ooh, that thing's heavier than it looks. Might make a halfway decent deck for this trailer, I don't know. We'll have to see. Well, what's holding this bed down now? Obviously, we have to undo the fuel tank situation there so it can lift up off of there. And wiring, we got to undo. I'm not even gonna try to unbolt the nuts down there because it's just gonna be a mess. Got a snake skeleton, not actually a skin, that's a skeleton here. He crawled under there or got stuck or something. I guess it's back to the grinder. If somebody wants to save this bed, they're most likely gonna have to replace the floor pan anyway, so I mean, the sides are pretty nice, other than there's some rust bubbling there in the usual spot. And what about over here? Yeah, I mean, that's just from a bad paint job or something. It's probably not too bad under there. Actually seems pretty solid. So I will try to keep the rest of it as intact as possible. The tailgate kind of blew apart here, and again, somebody would probably need to either patch or replace this tailgate. You might even be able to patch it because the rest of it, well, I don't know what it looks like under this skid plate here, but this part and everything looks pretty good, so someone might be able to save that. Let's get cracking on detaching this bed. Now, I'm gonna undo the hose clamps, and I'll let this stuff, I'll let the connectors pull out as I raise the bed. Under there. think everything is disconnected now and we're ready to lift this bed. I just realized, maybe you can see it, they bolted the supports for this kind of add-on gas tank to the bed itself. So I gotta look under there and see what the deal is. I think it's bolted between like the frame and the bed. I gotta undo something. Yeah, so these bolts here, they bolted supports across the frame. Of course, this block wood and through there. This is very much an add-on gas tank. I know the fuel line isn't connected to anything, so if I pull those two outer bolts, I should be able to either drop the tank or lift it with the bed, one of the two. All right, the bed is off. Thoughts? This U-bolt for the spring is broken. Cab mounts are bad. I knew I was going to have to replace those. We got pretty good frame. You can still see the numbering there. I mentioned it in the first video, but I don't think I showed it on video anywhere. Just I mentioned it in passing. I mean, if I was really smart, I would just rebuild this whole rear section here. Yeah, I'm not smart. Gotta fix that exhaust hanger. That's okay, I can do that. I will pressure wash and clean this all up. Probably put an exhaust tip on there since it's just venting right out the back of the muffler. That's fine. Looks like the wiring mostly survived. I'm going to be removing this bumper. Looks like it's actually bolted on. All the welding they did was on the hanging brackets, so I'm going to be unbolting that. I just dropped the whole bumper with this hitch attached. Originally I thought it was welded to the bed somehow, but then I got to looking at it and it wasn't. I had started cutting some supports and things, but this bumper's pretty much junk, I think. But yeah, I mean, probably if I looked at the other side, it's just completely holed through with rust almost. So yeah, this gas tank wasn't hooked up, obviously, but I got to cut the line because it caught on the frame, and you know, remove those support straps. And fortunately there wasn't much gas in it, so it doesn't weigh a ton. This is the operating tank, so I am going to cap this off temporarily so I don't get rain inside there. Well, that's a nice hole in the pipe there. Gonna have to replace all that if I ever reuse that for any reason. Well, let's get some of these extra things off of here. I'm gonna start with the bumper. I got the nuts off. It's just hanging by 2 bolts. Basically, I don't care about this thing, so I'm gonna just hammer the bolts out and let it fall, I guess. Watch your feet. One. Still not dropping. Oh, I guess it's got these struts inside the frame that might be holding it up. That's fine. it has to come this way. Oh, there it goes. Okay. That weighs a lot. Just like a... Oh, yeah, she weighs a lot. This is good. They didn't modify the frame horns at all. Doesn't look like. Looks like this is all original. I've got to get a few more parts off here before we clean it and then start replacing parts. There's still some loose bolts hanging here from when we took the bed off. Got to take off these brackets. Now I can much easier get to the bolts back here without crawling on my hands and knees. I'll take those off, and we'll take these tank brackets off. Looks like it's just this, just one nut. Boy, didn't have a lot holding that tank up, did they? Fantastic. Well, here's all the metal we took off. We're looking better. Still have to replace those cab mounts. I did order a new set. I did cut off the broken U-bolt as well as the good U-bolt. Well, I used good loosely because I had to hammer out all of the completely rust-stricken bolts and everything. That spring hanger should be good for reuse. Just gotta put new U-bolts on there. We'll have to address this rear axle, the vent and the fluids and everything, checking all that, but we haven't got to that yet. Well, I kind of washed and blew off everything with the pressure washer. Any loose, mostly loose undercoating that was going to come off. So now I can see these body mounts a little bit better. Kind of get in there to everything a little bit better. See if I can get one of these body mount bolts loose. Oh, it's turning. Wow. It's working. Turn it with a ratchet. Probably not. Oh, that's a workout. On with the big boy. Too hot out here to expend too much energy, I'll tell you that. Right down into the belly of the beast. Okay. Well, I don't give you long enough bolts in the kit. Guess I gotta reuse this, but don't give me long enough rubber pieces either. I guess I can reuse this one. I don't know. Once again, my camera went dead from the heat. We got the body mounts replaced. Now, I had thought that they were only sending me the rear cab mounts, but they sent me all 6. There's back, front, and middle on the crew cabs. All the cab mounts are replaced, so she's not sagging anymore, and I think the cab actually kind of sits level now. That one was completely gone. One of these was, this rear one must have been replaced at some point because it looks newer than the others. But yeah, I mean, some of these are, I mean, they're there, but yeah. So I got this kit online, and it's okay. My main beef with it was the hardware, they only send you new bolts for the front. I'm not sure what the deal is there. At least I think the bolts are for the front. They're too short for the rear. And the middle takes a nut, has a drop down bolt, and there's a nut on the bottom. They don't send you any of that. They send you new washers and stuff, but back here they didn't send the right height rubber or whatever that these are for, because there's this central metal piece, the sheath that goes down through spacer. There's this metal spacer that goes all the way down through to the bottom. So your bolt is a set length, and then the rubber piece they put in there, well, it never would have worked because it was way too short. It was like the rubber piece they sent was like one of these heights, and it never would have worked. Even if I would have I would have had to compress the snot out of those things to get them to work, which, you know, would have abused them, and I don't think you're supposed to do that. So just be aware if you're doing cab mounts and you get them online or something, the rear ones might have some issues. So finally got new U-bolts, so we can replace those now. A set of 4? It's a set of 4, but I'm not going to bother replacing those. At the end of the day, this is a work truck, and I'll replace them if they ever break. If this was a restoration or something I was really going to worry about, I don't care. I mean, it's rusty, and yeah, I don't care. So we're just replacing the ones that are broken right now. We need to deal with the differential. This vent is plugged and needs some attention. The hose is busted off, and well, the hose is plugged too, so we're going to try to replace that. But main thing is to get this vent unplugged without getting all that junk down in the differential. I'm going to remove the hose and hardware and the vent end and made sure that's clear because I'm going to reuse all that. And now we need to get this stuff out of here, hopefully without getting it down in the differential. I'll try my best to get my vacuum here. We're going to check the fluid level, which is that plug right there. So let me pull that out and I'll check the fluid level out. I'm sure that won't fight us at all. Oh, actually it's coming out, that's good. Do the finger test here. Clean finger. Actually, that gear oil looks pretty good. I mean, it's old, but that's what I'd expect. I'm gonna go get some gear oil and top that off. I'm not gonna change it right now because we're not doing fluids at the moment. I'm just getting it ready and operable at this point. All right, see if we can top this off with some gear oil. Until she runs out the side. Now I'm just going to replace that vent hose and we'll be done with that for now. Axle vent is installed, new line, and we have the vent end back on, so that's all correct now. So we need to move this exhaust this way because I might have said before it's so close to the rear tire that I can't really do an elbow out here like I want to do, like we have on this truck, without it moving that way. And I really don't feel like doing a factory exhaust, going up over and complicating that. There's no reason for that. So we're going to move the muffler this way. How much do we have to move it? I mean, roughly I want the end to come out about halfway, so at the very least we got to move it something like 18 inches. So basically we're going to take 18 inches out of this pipe. I'll cut that section out. Allow me to show you. This hanger is just about right under this hook, which I don't know what that's actually for, but we're going to use it for an exhaust hanger now. So let me see what kind of exhaust hanger I can find. Well, I wasn't going to do a fully welded exhaust, but I guess I am now. Okay, there's the exhaust. I calculated it to come out to about the same point as this one when we put the utility box on. I had to neck it down a little bit, but that's fine. You know, this rig, you know, it's just a 350. And I could put on dual exhaust if I ever cared that much, but I don't. Just ignore the twisted hangers and such. Actually is pretty sturdy. The main thing is it's rubber mounted, so it can have some vibrational qualities. You know, if you stand way back, it looks fine. Anyway, the exhaust is there and it'll work. So that's all we need. I'm gonna wrap this video up here. It's getting kind of long, I know. I tried to cut as much out as I could of the boring stuff, you know, which is just turning bolts and everything, and maybe tried to put a little bit more in of the troubleshooting where I could. So I apologize for the length, but I made it as short as I could while still trying to get good content out of it. So hopefully I did a good job with that. If I did not, I apologize in advance. Next time you see this truck, I believe the next project is going to be replacing the front clip with the clip from the white 86 truck. So tune in for that if you so desire. We appreciate any likes, subscribes. If you want to see more videos on this truck as we work on it, hit that notification bell. That'll tell you when we release a new video. And as always, thanks for watching.